Welcome back. I think you all deserve a pat on the back. You guys are the hardcore, you are the deadly survivors. You're still here. It's been amazing. So you're used to the format now. We have a glorious, brief apparition of a blazing new talent who will come and do a short opening act, and then we'll proceed to killer endings. I just want to let you know that if anyone was expecting to see Seema Mir, she's poorly. So I'm sorry about that, but we have the glorious Victoria Dowd, who's bravely stepped into Seema's shoes, sending love to Seema. I hope you get better soon. So to announce our next opening act, we have the wonderful Mary Watson, who is from Cape Town and now lives on the west coast of Ireland. She's coming here to talk to us about her award-nominated for the Irish Book Awards and the Carnegie Medal book, The Cleaner. Oh, no, that's not what you're going to do. Oh, that is what you're going to do. Well, I'm sure she's about to get a medal, so can we have a huge applause for Mary Watson?
So I'm really hoping that Bee's got sort of like clairvoyant powers and that this is all some kind of premonition. So I am Mary Watson and I am the author. Sorry, I just want to get my notes quickly. If I can remember my password. Yes, so I'm the author of this book, which is called The Cleaner. And it's about the main character called Esme, who travels from an unnamed country to Ireland and begins working as a cleaner in order to take revenge on her ailing brother's former lover, who she believes to be responsible for his demise. So one of the questions that I'm most frequently, sorry, I'm paranoid about spilling things, so I'm just going to move that over there. One of the questions I'm most frequently asked about my writing is, what inspires me? So I thought I'd just kind of spend my minutes up here talking about what inspires me. And now this question, or the answer to this question, is a bit like reaching into a giant lucky packet, because there are so many possible answers. I could tell you that I'm inspired by the beautiful Irish landscape, where I live on the west coast in Galway, or by walking in through the woods or visiting ruins. I could tell you that I'm inspired by this absolute bonkers world that we're living in, with all the craziness and all the wonderfulness that we have. But I had a thought while I was falling asleep one night fairly recently. So I'm going to talk to you about a slightly different inspiration, one that I don't think I've ever spoken about before. And I'm going to come at it from a slightly oblique angle and talk to you about my love for old films by Alfred Hitchcock, and how this has been an enduring inspiration for decades. Now, I know that Hitchcock could be problematic at times, for example, the punitive way that he treated Tippi Hedren during and after Marnie. But we can look at his work and see that his films have contributed a huge amount to storytelling over the last century. So I was in my late teens when I first fell in love with Alfred Hitchcock movies. Vertigo, North by Northwest, The Birds, Rear Window, The Lady Vanishes, Spellbound Marnie, all of these and others captured my imagination in the most powerful way. They created in me a love of stories that still have more to share after the first go through. You know, when you read a book and you can pick it up again and find something new, or you watch a film and you watch it a second time and find something that you missed the first. And that's the kind of story that I sort of love most and aspire to write. Hitchcock managed to pull off something pretty difficult, and that's the perfect combination of a self-consciously artful storytelling, but with immense popular appeal. And I think that's a really, really hard thing to pull off. And it's something that might look a lot easier than it is, but to write something that is very much aware of its techniques and its form, but at the same time appeals to a wide range of readers, is not particularly easy. So what inspires me is my very own personal response to these films and how they make me feel, and how that feeling drives my own writing, that they capture a kind of beauty and elegance in telling compelling stories. And this has always been one of my main goals as a writer, to balance the beauty and of the medium of writing and playfulness with writing, but with a very plotty story. And I'm a writer, so I can make up words like plotty. Okay. So one of the most immediate things that strikes me about these films is that they're very is the visuals. They're very lush to look at. They're a sensory experience. Like you think about the angelic vision of Grace Kelly flitting around the housebound Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window. And I loved how this visual feast was an important part of telling the story, of creating mood and vibe. And I loved how beauty is used to work our senses and our perception, to manipulate the viewer. So when I write, I want to write a world that's sensuous and immediate, and where setting is an important part of the story itself. And in The Cleaner, this came really easily because it's set in a university town in Ireland at midsummer. And this is the time of year when the days are endless, like it never gets 100% dark. The hedgerows are thick and full and buzzing with life. When you step outside, the smell of wildflowers captivates your senses. So I had good material to work with. And I'm going to read you a very, very short extract from somewhere near the beginning that just kind of maybe hints at a bit of what I'm saying. And I managed to forget my glasses, so I'm just going to have to squint at this. So this morning, I strolled through the bluebell woods, taking in boundless shades of green, from the rich mossy stones to the lighter hues on the higher branches. The cries of birds, the rustling foliage, a red squirrel darting across the off-beaten path. I'd never known a place could feel like this, heaving and aware. I was due at Isabel soon, but now, embraced by trees, I wanted to think about what had happened and what was to come. So, for me, one of the main things was to use this summary beauty of the landscape as a device. It becomes a way to emphasize how Esme feels alienated from the place that she's in, which then in turn nudges at her own sense of self-alienation, that she doesn't feel at one with the world that she's in, nor with herself. It also contrasts with her repeat return to the houses where she works, which are confining and claustrophobic. The book opens with the lines, "Houses know, they watch." And this comes from me having actually started writing this book during the pandemic in those very, very early days when we weren't allowed to leave the house. And you just kind of had the sense of your whole world being reduced to the four walls around you. Another thing that I really enjoy about Hitchcockian movies is the way that they have multi-layered narratives. They throw together suspense, thriller, mystery, romance, and they're all together in rich, multi-layered stories. They're stories that pull you along for a ride, but they're also stories that make you think. So there's an anecdote that's attributed to Hitchcock where a scriptwriter sleeps badly, thrashes about through the night, and then half awake, half asleep, he picks up the pen in the notebook beside him and writes down a really clever plot. And then he falls back to sleep, certain that he's written an absolute work of genius. In the morning, he wakes up and he picks up the page and he reads, "Boy meets girl." And I love that story because I think that boy meets girl or boy meets boy has the potential to be the heart of the very best horror, thriller, romance, spy, any kind of story. And if in The Cleaner, if you were to sum up the plot, you do a far worse than to go with boy meets girl. So I'll read another short extract. I looked at Amber, who wore her entitlement as easily as she wore her silk kimono. I looked at Siano, whose smile was as sincere as if it had been painted on her face. I looked at Isabel, at her cool self-containment and wary eyes. All of them respectable suburban women, living in this leafy area with its large houses. Each of them careful to keep a face on. But I knew, without any doubt, one of these women had been shagging the lodger. In this kitchen was the woman who had destroyed Nico, and I was here to return the favor. I should add that I didn't actually write shagging. I might have substituted another word there because I wanted to pretend to be a bit respectable now. So another thing about Hitchcockian films, and this is probably the last point I'm going to make, is that they're always thematically solid. They're explorations. So, for example, you have domestic abuse in Gaslighting, sexual obsession in Marnie, and I'm a sucker for a good theme because I think that they ground and they enrich stories, they add dimension. And there's several themes that are explored in The Cleaner: obsession, identity, privilege, alienation. But my particular favorite in this book is entrapment, the idea that we're all trapped in one way or another by life, by circumstance, by our very selves. And I'm going to read another very short extract, which kind of hints at this idea of entrapment. I picked up the stapled printout. To be unmade by Eden Hill. Entrapment for most people is inevitable. The details of routine, of the familiar, all serve to imprison us. We are the sum of our experiences. But unlike the sculpture whose shape is deliberately fashioned, we are not made with vision or foresight. We are accidentally and haphazardly made. We do not know as we take shape what we are becoming. The very shape of ourselves is another cage. Now, I must mention that this is kind of written by a sort of poet figure that's in the book and kind of writes these kinds of bits of philosophy and poetry, whatever. But there was a lot more in the original version of it, and I was kind of made to scale it back. So there's not too much of that kind of thing in it. But I did insist that that piece on entrapment stay in. So I love the idea that our small actions, our small routines, our small thoughts all shape us, and they all shape around us and form some kind of invisible cage. I think it's a delightfully grim idea, and it's an undercurrent that runs throughout the book. Now, I could probably go on talking about how I'm inspired by the way that these films, Hitchcock's films, manipulate the viewer, how they draw on psychology, but that would take all night. Instead, I'll leave you with a few words from Hitchcock himself, words for a writer to live by. He's talking in this case about audiences, but I think it can apply to readers too. Give them pleasure, the same pleasure they have when they wake up from nightmares. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And if you want to know what word she did have instead of shagging, her book is available outside. And she'll be joining the signing afterwards. We're in for a treat now. We have 3 queens of the killer ending. And I'm also delighted that it's going to be chaired by Abir Mukherjee. It's lovely to welcome you back. Abir is an absolute superstar. He's also going to be signing books afterwards, so do not miss out. He's the author of the Wyndham and Banerjee series of crime novels set in Raja-era India. His books have won numerous awards, including the CWA Dagger for Best Historical Novel, the Prix de Polar European, and the Wilbur Smith Award for Adventure Writing. And he's co-host of the Red Hot Chili Writers podcast. Did I get that right? Thank you. Well, he's going to be a red hot presenter tonight, so give him a huge round of applause.
Gosh, I'm wondering whether I should sit on the chaise longue. Get some sort of therapy going. Well, shall I tell you about who I've got on my panel today? We're still one short.
Where do you want us?
Wherever you... Oh, there you are.
I'm right, come at the back.
I thought I could come that side.
Coming at you, sorry.
Wherever you want.
I thought you were going to sit there, you see. Sorry. Causing chaos today, sorry.
Killer endings. Thank you, all of you, for staying for this session, which I think will be the best session, I have to say. Yeah. Because I have some phenomenal writers with me today. Sam Blake has had a string of #1 bestsellers, including Keep Your Eyes on Me and Remember My Name. She's been shortlisted for Irish Crime Novel of the Year 3 times.
5, actually.
That's just greedy.
2 kids' books, too.
Okay, that's just greedy. You're the chair of the Society of Authors, which means that she'll be fighting for our rights to save us from AI right now. Yeah. And you founded Europe's biggest online writers magazine, Writing.ie. .ie. Her new book, The Killing Sense, was an instant bestseller. Just the sort of writer I hate, but there you are. Victoria Dowd. Victoria Dowd is author of the Smart Women's Mystery series and has been shortlisted for the CWA Dagger. Her novel, The Smart Women's Guide to Murder, won the People's Book Prize for Fiction. Her historical crime novel, Death in the Aviary, is the first in her new series, The Blood Chronicles. Victoria writes the Adapting Agatha blog and is head of the London chapter of the Crime Writers Association. And we've talked about Agatha Christie already. We're going to come to another aficionado of Agatha Christie, so maybe we'll have some Christie conversation as well as part of this. Sophie Hannah is a #1 best-selling crime writer whose books are published in 51 countries. I didn't realize there were 51 countries. And have sold millions of copies worldwide. She won the UK National Book Award's Crime Novel of the Year in 2013 and the Dagger in the Library Award in 2023. Her murder mystery musical, The Mystery of Mr. E, I like what you've done there, I like that, is available on Amazon Prime and Apple TV, for those of you rich enough to have Apple TV. Right, shall we get down to it, ladies? Killer endings, that's quite a topic. What I'd like to do is, I'd like to have a conversation, because I don't like doing very much work. I'd rather you guys did it and I can sit back. But I will be asking you, as we go along, a wee bit about your new books and asking some specific questions. But let's start with, let's get to the nub of it. What makes a great ending in crime fiction? Who's going to start? Sophie.
You've got the... Okay.
I just say the microphone matches your outfit. Was that a plan?
No. Oh, it works. No, I don't like microphones that cling to me in any way. I've probably got, what's it called, avoidant attachment, but I prefer to hold a microphone rather than have it on me. Sorry, what was the question? What makes a brilliant ending?
What makes a brilliant microphone? No, what makes a brilliant ending in crime fiction?
Okay, so I think that a brilliant ending has to be, first of all, perfectly matched to the hook of the book in question. So in other words, you know, not every ending would work for every book. And one thing that I am very concerned about in my books, because I always start with very, very high concept hooks. By high concept, I don't mean like it's set in space or there are aliens involved. It's like just something about the idea of the hook is kind of detachably appealing, even if you don't know anything else about the story or the characters. And I often start with hooks where it seems as though something almost impossible might be going on. But even when it's not something that seems impossible, it's something that's very, very unusual. So I think if you're doing that kind of thing with your hooks, as I am, the ending has to be equally kind of eye-opening, jaw-dropping, high concept. I think if you have, like, just as a random example, one of my books starts with a woman who sees two children who apparently haven't aged or grown in 12 years. So when she last saw them, they were 5 and 3 years old. When she sees them 12 years later, they are still 5 and 3 years old. She knows this is impossible. She's not an unreliable narrator, and yet there they are, still 5 and 3 years old. So that is the kind of opening and hook that where readers are going to go, no way, I mean, that just can't, that's just impossible, that's just... So I can't have an ending for that book which is kind of in any way in the register of normal solution. So I've read many brilliant crime novels where the solution is something like, you know, Maureen did it for this very, you know, understandable psychological motive, and that might work really well for a traditional murder mystery. But if you're going to start with a WTF beginning, you need a bit of a jaw-dropping ending. And I always think of it like a seesaw. So that's number one requirement. If a book is a seesaw, which obviously it isn't, but also it is, you need an ending that perfectly balances with your beginning, whatever size of jaw-dropping or sort of psychologically insightful. They just need to match. I also think that a brilliant ending has to be unguessable. I often guess the endings of books I'm reading, but when I don't, I mean, I'll never forget, first time I read Murder on the Orient Express, and I was thinking as I got towards the end, there's just no solution that's possible here. Everyone has been alibied by someone else. And I didn't consider the only possibility that remained. And then when I found out what it was, I was like, oh, that's the cleverest thing in the world. And that's kind of how I want to feel at the end of a book. And it doesn't have to be a twist. People are wrong about what twists are quite often. Twists are not very, very clever solutions. That's just a very, very clever solution, like Murder on the Orient Express. That isn't a twist. A twist is where you think you've had the solution and then something new happens or it's overturned. So either way, I think it has to be matching the beginning and unguessable. I'll probably think of other things, but...
Well, I was just going to say, I mean...
Save some.
Yeah, you said, what, aged 5 and 8 for 12. Some of us have been 25 for a very long time. That's all I'm going to say to that. But let's pick up on some of those points. A great ending has to be matched to a great beginning. Victoria, what's your thoughts on a great
I think
ending?
one of my favourite endings is Reader, I Married Him. And it's not specifically a murder mystery, but it is. You know, it's one of the greatest mysteries. And it is, for a very long time, I thought they're some of the most beautiful words in fiction. They're also some of the most hideous. You get all the way to the end of Jane Eyre, and she tells you, Reader, I married him. She is Mrs. Rochester. All the way through, she has lied to you. And you think everything is perfect for her now. It has all been fixed. It's all beautiful. But in fact, it is not at all. She just told you the biggest lie.
Wait, what? Sorry.
Okay, so you get to the end of Jane Eyre. She's 10 years later. She is your narrator. She just told you at the end of Jane Eyre, Reader, I married him.
Right.
I am Mrs. Rochester. She is now, and has been for 10 years, Jane Rochester. Her fear is what lived in the attic. That is what sat there all of the time.
I mean, OK, this requires a whole new event.
It is your interpretation of an ending, and Jane Eyre has been with me all of my life, basically.
Is it Jane Eyre that ends with that, and I saw no shadow of another parting?
Yeah.
Is that Jane Eyre as
Yes,
well?
Yes, so there are so many... Go back, read Jane Eyre.
There are probably copies out
And
there.
look for it now. And look for it. So Jane Eyre has been with me, like Rebecca has been with me all of my life.
Yeah.
So, you know, the first part is... I'm young, I'm reading it, I'm going, oh, I'm so scared. What the hell is in the attic? It's a ghosty, it's a beastie, it's a beastie. We all love a beastie film, yeah? And the second part is, oh my God, Mr. Rochester, please be alive, be the person who is going to sweep me off my feet, even though I know that you've chained up your wife in the attic and I'm the new one. The last part, or maybe not even the last part, maybe there's another part to go. Read it again. Reader, I married him. I am Mrs. Rochester. I am Jane Rochester.
So would we call that the twist? You can use the couch.
Let's get on the couch. Let's get on the couch about Jane.
Well, as I say, I think we could easily get sucked into... We could easily... I mean, that's blown my mind.
We have to all reread Jane Eyre now.
But what you have made me think also about endings is those words, Reader, I married him. I mean, not all brilliant endings have to have like an actual memorable sentence or paragraph, but some of the best endings do, and not only in crime fiction. So I agree, Reader, I married him, and...
Reader, I murdered him.
Reader, I married him is very memorable. Then there's also The Great Gatsby, you know, born back ceaselessly. It's better than that in his rendition, I can't remember. But that paragraph, final paragraph of Gatsby, amazing. 2 John Irving books spring to mind, Hotel New Hampshire and Owen Meany. The end of A Prayer for Owen Meany, the last 2 lines is something like, oh God, please give him back, I will keep asking you. And even, I can't remember anything really about the book, but those lines just gave me such goosebumps, and I've got goosebumps now, and I could easily start crying. I won't. But just the emotional impact of those 2 last lines are incredible. And Hotel New Hampshire is something like, just keep passing the open windows. So I do actually think that the precise words with which a book ends, if they're brilliant and memorable as well, and the plot and everything is doing what it should, then that really kind of cements a brilliant ending in a reader's mind.
I think you got a point. I mean, the only ending I remember is 1984, where it says, you know, and, you know, he loves Big Brother. What was the exact phrase? I can't remember now. But yeah, that's the one ending I remember. I love Big Brother. Is that how it ends? Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only one that I remember. But it is a very powerful book for me. I'm going to come to you, Sam. Sam, I'm actually going to pick up something that Sophie said. An ending, a really special ending, has to be original. How do you make it original when, you know, we're sitting here, people have been writing for centuries. How do you make your endings original?
I think every story is original, isn't it? As we approach a story...
you haven't read much of my stuff then.
We're right. Every new story, I suppose, because your voice is original and what you bring to... We were speaking earlier about how you bring a little bit of you to every character that you write. And that's the originalness of it. And, you know, if we sat down and, you know, we were doing a workshop and whoever gave photographs to everybody and asked you to write the same story, you'd all write different stories because that's the creativity and stuff. So I think that the originality comes in the voice, and that's... What was the question? That comes in the ending.
Yeah, it was how do you get...
How do you get to that? Yeah, no, so I think the originality is in the voice, and you do get it. Because your story is original, so yeah. I can't think of any endings. When you're talking about emotional endings, I love an ending. I love that. I want, when I'm writing, for there to be a wow at the end, where you put the book down and you go, yes, wow, I didn't see that coming, and you go away with that feeling, that little bit of emotion.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think you want... Just like in a song, not always, but often, if there's a key change at the end and you go up a bit, like in Love Story by Taylor Swift, when it goes to Marry Me, Juliet, and suddenly and it's just like, wow, and it's like, oh, and you want that feeling from the end of a book, I think.
Yeah.
I'm actually very happy because that's one of the few Taylor Swift songs that I actually know. So I feel quite cool right now. Thank you for that, Sophie.
I only know 3 or 4, but
well, that's good.
That is a great one, and that key change really makes
We should do a karaoke version later.
I've made money doing karaoke. Wuthering Heights, actually, is my karaoke
Again,
competition.
literary, right? I like that.
Yeah.
Sophie, I'm going to ask you to tell us a wee bit about your new book. No one would do what the Lamberts have done. Tell us a wee bit about it, because we're talking about endings. This book it will blow your mind throughout, right? The ending specifically, but, you know, the whole thing is... I've never read anything like this, so if you could tell us a wee bit about it.
Yeah, well, actually, this endings are really relevant in what I'm going to... The reason I've got it with me is because this is a proof copy. It's the first proof copy. It arrived yesterday, and I'm completely in love with this book, so I'm still at the stage of literally clinging to it and carrying it with me everywhere I go. So... With all of my books, they either begin one way or another. They always begin with an idea for a hook, a sort of opening mysterious premise that I think is irresistible, or an idea for an ending or a motive or a twist that I think is irresistible, and then I work backwards or forwards. With Lambert's, the initial idea was the hook. Now, the hook on the proof is being very cagey, because it says, as you'll see here, the Lamberts are just an ordinary family until they do the unthinkable. And when Bedford Square, who are the publishers, when Bedford Square and I were thinking about the hook, there's a much more precise hook than that. That is the sort of high concept hook, which I am actually going to tell you because it's not a secret. We decided, though, not to make it part of the proof package because the hook is kind of also a plot development. So I said, well, why don't we just pitch it as an ordinary family that does the unthinkable? Because I knew that if I was on the receiving end of that, I would have to know what the unthinkable was. So that's why we put it, that's why it says the unthinkable. But the actual hook, which is for the sort of beginning of the book, is basically ordinary family, you know, mum, dad, 2 teenage kids, boy and a girl, you know, pretty much 2.4 kids and a microwave, as ordinary as you can get. They go on the run, like Harrison Ford in The Fugitive, in order to save the life of their pet dog, who has been wrongly accused of biting a neighbour's teenage daughter. And it's not a controversial what should we do about bitey dogs book. It's really not. The dog is completely innocent, you know, so it's more 10 Rillington Place than bitey dogs in a way. But basically, a policeman comes to the door at the very beginning, accuses Champ Lambert, the cute Welsh terrier that belongs to the Lamberts, of biting a teenage girl who lives on the same close in their village, and he didn't do it. The family have a grudge against the Lamberts for all kinds of mad reasons. Sally Lambert, who is the mum of the Lamberts family and regards herself as the mum of Champ just as much as she's the mum of her human children, she knows that this visit from a policeman could, in theory, end with them seizing her dog and possibly putting him to sleep. And she decides in that moment that she has taken enough crap in her life, and that is not happening. So she decides to go on the run with the dog, and the rest of the family are kind of like, what, are you insane? And she's like, well, I might be, but I'm going on the run with the dog. And then her 2 teenage children who want to get out of their imminent exams, which they haven't revised for, they're like, yeah, let's go on the run. And then the dad's like, oh, for God's sake, if you're all going on the run, I guess I'll go on the run. So my nickname for the book was The Furry Fugitive, and intermittently Gone Dog as well. So this book started with an idea for the beginning, not the ending. And yet, as I was writing it, like so many sort of amazing endings ideas came to me. I couldn't really choose between them. And so I had a series of twists that I thought were brilliant. But the ending in the first draft was like, it just didn't work. And I knew it didn't work. So I showed it to my editor, Carolyn Mays, who I've worked with since 2005. She was at Hodder for many years, and now she's at Bedford Square. And she said, it's absolutely just brilliant and the best thing ever until the ending. And I just thought the ending wasn't. I was like, I know, it's not good enough. And this is something I often feel about my first idea for an ending, if I start with a brilliant beginning. Anyway, so I said, right, give it back. You're completely right. It needs a wow factor ending. And I literally instructed my imagination to produce one. And I thought, right, I'm just going to read the last 3 chapters again and see what occurs to me. And as I did that, the most incredible ending. It was so weird. It was like magic. It was like, it could turn out to be this. Oh, and that's in place. And it was like it was all set up for this brilliant ending. And yet I'd still managed to put a crap one on. But as soon as my editor said it was crap, when I read it again, I was like, oh, wow. Why don't I take out the crap ending and put in a brilliant one?
And did she agree to that?
She was like, I'm not sure. No, she was like, yes, good idea. But the weird thing is, I love this ending so much, but it started with the beginning. And so I do just trust that wherever there's a brilliant beginning, there's a brilliant ending to be had. And I do just trust that any book that doesn't currently have a wow factor ending can be given one. And it often comes up. I run a coaching program for writers called Dream Author. And so often, my dream authors, as I call them, one of them or other of them will say, I mean, there's like 1,500 of them, so they don't all say it at once. But over the years, they've often said, I just think my ending falls a bit flat. And I'll say, yeah, I sometimes feel like that. And then I ask myself the question, what could I add or take away or change or replace so that the ending feels like a massive key change and produces a wow factor?
Go back to Taylor Swift.
Back to Taylor Swift. But the weird thing is, when you instruct your brain to produce an ending like that, it will try to. And then it more often than not will. Whereas if you just think, well, this is an ending and it'll do, then you might not go that extra mile to find the brilliant
That's quite
ending.
interesting. I've never really thought about that, about telling my brain to actually do something. Maybe I should. But that's really interesting.
And often, those breadcrumbs are often in place already, aren't they?
Well, it's like Stephen King says, where basically the story is there, you're just moving the dirt away and you find it. So maybe that's right. Just to pick up on that, Victoria, when does the ending come to you? Where in your writing process?
Right at the beginning for me. So because I write sort of locked room mysteries and impossible crimes, that it has to all work. It's far more mechanical, and basically it all stems from the trick. So it's kind of like a magic trick at the beginning. And inside, so my latest one is a locked lift mystery.
Well, let's talk about...
Death in the Aviary.
Death in the Aviary. Tell us about it.
You have a lift.
Victorian.
It's a big old Victorian birdcage of a lift that the Victorians decided if they had somebody who was elderly or infirm in their house, rather than move them to the ground floor of their large house, they put an enormous lift in there. And this is on Dartmoor, so they didn't have any electricity either, so they only have to start making their own electricity. These are not things I've made up. People did this kind of crap. And they go into the lift, the power fails, someone is shot, the air is shot, and the light comes up, and the gun is on the floor. How do you solve that? There is no feasible way of solving that within that room. And so I kind of work from that premise of, here is the problem in the middle, how do I solve that? Often I don't really know how to do that, and that's how I have to work out from that. But I will kind of know the ending when I'm starting, and all the points have to go towards that.
So you will come up with an impossible scenario and then have to figure out the impossible ending.
Yeah. So, for instance, with Murder Most Cold, they go to Finland, and the ice has been building for months, and they've gone for this wedding, and one of the party who's gone out there is murdered and is found under the ice. There are no holes to get through. How do you get a body under the ice that's been building for months? Obviously, that took some working out for me to do that. I didn't know the ending, but I kind of knew the ending. But
well, how do you find the question in the first place? That's the bit that surprises me. How do you even come up with that?
I suppose it's always looking for what is an impossible thing that you can solve, and we're all trying to solve the puzzle in the middle of it.
Ah. What about you, Sam? When do you come up with your endings? At what point in the process?
Usually I like to know what the ending is when I start the book, so I know where I'm going to go to. I don't always know how I'm going to get there, but I'll have an image of, so with The Killing Sense, which is the book that just came out in January, I set in Paris, and I started off, it's about a woman called Kate Wilde, who is a redhead, Irish redhead, and she wins a competition on Facebook to go to Paris for a week in a beautiful apartment and to take a perfume course. And I had this image of Kate Wilde, this woman with red hair, sitting on the Eurostar, and that's where I started. And she meets a guy on the Eurostar who looks remarkably like Daniel Craig, so you just have to keep holding that, hold that thought.
Do many of the men in the books look like Daniel Craig that you write?
Some of them. Some of them, indeed, in this one. And he's actually called Daniel in the book too, which I only realised I didn't change his name and I'd forgotten to change that subsequently. So just hold the thought of Daniel Craig. Just think Netflix and we'll just see if we can manifest. Anyway, so he looks a bit like Daniel Craig. And then I had this impression of this guy, the same guy, Daniel Craig, standing on a stairway in Paris. You know those beautiful stone stairways that go up with the sort of wrought iron banisters? And standing outside an apartment, and that was my end point. Now, I didn't know what he was doing there or how he got there, but I knew that she had been lured to Paris by a serial killer who was fascinated by the smell of a particular perfume on the skin of redheads, because it turns out that redheads, the perfume smells different on the skin of redheads compared with people with other complexions.
I have to, I've read this book and it is such...
Brilliant.
I've learned so much about it. Not about Daniel Craig. Before I continue, I do have a Daniel Craig story. Well, no. My wife bought a picture frame, and the picture that came with it was Daniel Craig. And for 3 years, it just sat on our bedside table, and she didn't change the picture.
I love it.
I haven't found one yet. Anyway, so going back to this, I learned so much about the perfume industry, but also about Paris. And I want to understand a bit of your research process and how that informs your ending.
I think I love doing research, and I love things to be right in a book. So I want if somebody's a perfumier to read the book and it be right. If it's the book before was about a facial reconstruction expert, and it's called Three Little Birds, and she's a doctor, and she rebuilds faces from skulls. So I did a course on facial reconstruction in order to learn. To make her do that. But I did a perfume course too, so I had to learn to make perfume in Paris. It's great.
In Paris.
We're all going to sit a bit closer now.
Yeah.
There are some, I'm finally learning that if you're going to write a book, it should be somewhere really quite nice. And yes, so I had to go to Paris. I'd never been to Paris before, would you believe it?
Really?
Before I wrote the book. And so I went 3 times because you'd had you have to go 3 times.
You're playing catch-up.
Absolutely, yes. But I mean, I have to say, I did go down the sewers the first time, and I'm the only person I think who's been to Paris to go down the sewers.
See, that's dedication.
Not up to the Eiffel
The
Tower.
perfume.
Yeah, well, it starts off with a head, here, it's a bit gory. It's a head in the sewers, so we need to know what the sewers were like.
And it's a wonderful, wonderful book, I must say.
Oh, that's not the ending, that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've gone off to complete tangent now.
And how does your research inform the ending? Does it play into it?
Yes, it does, because to me, yes, because the story, you get to the end. With this particular one, I usually do plot a bit. And so I do know what happens as I'm writing the story. But with this one, I had no idea. I just wanted to see... I keep meeting people like Lisa Jewell and people who don't plot, and they produce these amazing books. And I want to grow with each book that I write. So I thought, it's a great idea. We won't plot this one. I can see the image. We've got Daniel Craig, and we've got her on the train, and we've got Daniel Craig on the staircase at the end, and we'll just try and write it and find out what happens. My God, it was hard work. So
You got sort of sidetracked into sort of Daniel Craig territory.
Well, I had to go to Paris, obviously. Yeah. But I found it really, really hard work. And I got there in the end. But so there were lots of things happening that I didn't know. So yes, the research did inform the ending. And there was a big ending, and I had to rewrite the ending, actually, because the first version of it was nonsense. And I had something happening that couldn't happen and stuff, and yes, had to reorganise it. So, but I just say, I really like a very little bit of a twist at the end. So I write the story, and then I want to make sure there's a final, very little twist at the end that nobody knows about.
And how do you go about that? How do you? Well, there's 2 questions here. When do you know that you've got your ending right? When do you feel that yes, this is right? How do you feel that? And how do you work in that twist?
How do I know? It's a gut thing, isn't it, when you're writing? I think a lot of us, we're writing with our subconscious minds, and if you get that feeling that something's not quite right, it's because it's not quite right. And I realised that particular ending was wrong because somebody went out of a window, and then I realised, well, there's no point, you can't have a body lying on the floor out of the window, because when everybody arrives to come and solve the mystery, there's a body going to be lying there, and that's just not going to work because it's all giving it away too early. So anyway, scrapped all of that, and it's got quite a complex ending, and I had to then go and work back to make sure that I sort of re-engineer bits to make sure that it flowed. That's not an answer to your question.
No, but I think it's important. As you say, I think it is something that it's in your gut, right? You know when the pieces fit, and you know when it works. I'm given that this is a killer women panel, and you've all written books where women are the protagonists or the key drivers of the plots. Do you think that a book with a strong female protagonist, do you think their endings need to be different from maybe a traditional male detective ending? Or is that just me being stupid?
No, I think there can be anything. Charlotte Blood is yours, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
Great.
She is.
She's brilliant.
She is. She's...
Because I think you guys have it tougher, right? I think with men, essentially you either just punch someone or shoot them, right?
No, I love having a female protagonist.
With women, you have to think more, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loves Miss Marple. Well,
yeah. No, I love Miss. I adore Miss Marple.
You still think about Jane Eyre?
No, I am, but I'm not going to bring it up again.
That's a big revelation.
I always deliver very bad value on the male-female question because I just don't think it matters. So I think depending on your detective or your protagonist and their personality, they're going to behave differently. So you might have a protagonist who shoots people, a protagonist who poisons people. I don't really think it's got anything to do with men or women. And obviously, I happen to be a woman and a lot of my characters are women, but a lot of my characters are men. And I just don't think... What I notice is when anyone says, the thing about women is da-da-da-da, or the thing about men is da-da-da, I always go, yeah, but that's also true of men or women. Do you know what I mean? Right. So for me, it's just not a thing at all, really. So I don't... often journalists who are doing an article on, women crime writers... In fact, there was one hilarious time when a journalist from a very famous newspaper kept saying, but do you think women writers have it harder? I was like, no. Do you think women writers are different? No. Some of them are, some of them aren't. So for me, that's just
I think women have it easier because they're more intelligent than men. So.
But I don't even think that, I honestly think...
I disagree with you on that.
You think women are more intelligent than men?
Yeah.
Well, I was just in the green room. I will share this anecdote. Oh, no, I can't because it's... But somebody read a book of mine and asked a question about it that was so dumb, and that person was a woman, and yet...
God, I thought it was me. I was
and yet-
asking questions.
That's about as specific as I can get. And yet Agatha Christie is one of the cleverest people who's ever lived, and she was a woman too. I just don't think you can really know much more than that.
Well, let's talk about Agatha Christie, because we have
Yeah.
so many distinguished Agatha experts here. What have you learnt, Victoria, from Dame Agatha?
How to plot, do it, and do it well, if you can, and cut the crap out, you know. You can just go off down too many avenues, and you have to hold the thought all of the time. This is the trick. This is where we're going with this. And to plan and plot meticulously is what I do. And always, you know, I have...
You build Lego models.
I build
Lego
models?
She does.
But, well, yeah. So in my third book...
So you're saying that Lego is a tax-deductible expense in your house?
Should be. Should be. This is, yeah.
Research?
Third book, it's a village. They're going on what's called a safari supper club. So you move from house to house. All the people in the village eat a course at each house. And we did this in a little Devon village, and people kept disappearing and then reappearing. I'm popping home to get this, I'm going to do this. And it was really, really dark. It's not like in London where, you know, you've got any ambient light. And I did that, this is a great place to kill someone, isn't it? And that is what's happening to most of us when we're going out with anybody, just so you know. This is a great place to kill someone. And
that's why my wife won't go on a cruise with me.
surprising. And the rest.
Best place to kill someone's on a cruise ship.
Totally
Anyway.
is.
So I thought, I'll do this. And it's great to have confusion, and that's what we're all aiming for in all of our books. Distraction. It is the conjurer's trick all of the time. But I was getting confused as to where everybody was and what a particular character would have heard or what they would have seen, and thinking, where was this person at this time? Who'd gone where? I don't know, at each point in the book. So my son, during lockdown, built the entire village out of Lego, and every character in the book had a minifigure. So as the person in the book moved, the minifigure moved, and I moved them around so that I knew exactly at each chapter, every point I was writing, where every single character was in this village, which was brilliant and worked until my son needed a particular character to play with, and Chewbacca would turn up in the morning.
We've all felt like that some morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you all a question here. If you could rewrite the ending to any famous crime novel...
Oh, I thought you meant our own.
Not your own. Well,
all
okay,
of
no,
mine.
let's go with somebody else's. Which one would it be and why? And how would you do it? I'm not going to say how you do it. That's tough. But if you could rewrite the ending of a crime novel or any novel, which one would it be? Sophie's going to say Jane Eyre.
She's going to come up with a good one now. I have a total blank.
Well, I don't know whether I'd bother to rewrite it because it wasn't a great crime novel. I'm not going to name it, but there's one that really sticks in my mind that I was so enjoying, and it was just... like, it was really delivering on every level. It was gripping. It was just ace. But, I mean, it wasn't like a great work of literature, but it was fully brilliant as a commercial crime novel. And it had a twist at the end, which was also really good. And then there was a final paragraph, which was an extra twist, and it ruined the entire book.
Oh.
It ruined the entire book. I just couldn't believe it because there'd already been a really good twist. So there was no need for this other twist. But basically the last paragraph was like, oh, and by the way, it was me. I killed them all. I did it. I'm the baddie. But what you've been reading in the first person throughout the book is, I rack my brains to work out who can have done this.
Oh, yes,
Like
that makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's very different.
And it didn't need it.
It didn't need it. It's very different from when a narrator has been misleading the other characters in the book. And their thoughts, you read them one way, but when you know, you go back and go, yes, I now see. This was not that. This was, who on earth could have murdered my wife? I just cannot think who it might be. in the narrator's thoughts. And then at the end, it's like, ha-ha, it was all me. And I was so cross, but I wouldn't rewrite it. I'd just not recommend it to anyone else.
Delete the end. Yeah, don't look at me. I
mean,
can't think of anything.
I tell you what I might also do. So Murder on the Orient Express, best ending ever. No one notices a really interesting feature of it, though. So we've got the brilliant solution, and we've got the fact that it's a Poirot novel where he actually does let murderers get away with it in a big way. So there's the whole justice question. And those are the two sort of notable facts about that ending that everyone talks about. What no one ever seems to bang on about, apart from me, is the fact that Poirot leaves it up to a random guy on the train, some train employee, gets to decide whether the murderers are brought to justice or not. And Poirot goes, right, so I'm going to tell two versions of the story. If that guy in the buffet car reckons we should do this, then we'll do that. And if not, we'll do that. And I just find that fascinating. So I would love just like a sentence or two to sort of tell us whether, like, what are we meant to take from it? Why does Poirot delegate that important decision to the guy in the buffet? I don't get it. And
that's an interesting question, because you mentioned two things. You mentioned justice and ambiguity, right? Justice implies the ends are tied up, and ambiguity is obviously something. What do you prefer in an ending? Do you prefer a resolution, or do you prefer ambiguity? And that's to all of you. Or is it horses for courses?
I love both, and in all of my books, I try to do both. So it's not actually justice. For me, it's the solving of the mystery, because sometimes there isn't justice, but there's always the solving of the mystery. So that has to be properly done, but I also like to leave one thing at least for the reader to wonder about and be able to have an opinion about that's not nailed down.
So one thread that they can
so for example, in one of my Poirot novels, we know who done it, we know exactly, everything has been tied up. And in the very last chapter, we discover that Poirot and Catchpool disagree about the motive. And so Poirot says, yes, of course, the motive was blah. And Catchpool goes, wait, what? No, the motive was this. And it's hard to go into more detail without giving something away, but basically that is the thing for the reader to wonder about, and you can genuinely have an opinion about it, even though you know the who and the why on one level. So I love that ambiguity, but you have to also know what the solution is.
Okay, Sam, I'm going to ask you, which book would you rewrite?
Of my own?
No.
Oh, actually, I don't know.
Or one of your own, if you
No, I don't know. I don't know which one I'd rewrite, because I've now got a complete mental block. Because I've only been reading really great books recently, because I've been cribbing for this. So I've read Tess Gerritsen's amazing books. I've read Dark Wives? I call it The Good Wives earlier when I was talking to Anne. Dark Wives. So I've been reading great books, and none of those have, and they all got amazing endings. So I can't. I'm good. Sorry, drew a complete blank on that.
So you're not answering my question.
Useless guest. No, can't.
I'm disappointed.
Sorry.
Victoria.
It's not one I rewrite, it's one that has been rewritten by the author herself, is And Then There Were None. So basically, as you probably all know anyway, but in And Then There Were None, there are none at the end. They're all dead. There is no detective. It doesn't conform to any of the templates of crime fiction, and therefore is brilliant. However, when it was taken and rewritten as a play, which she wrote, that it had to be two people got away. And I despise that. I'm sorry. I despise that two of the people, all of these people on this island are horrendous. They're immoral. They're corrupt. They've committed some of the worst offences. And in the book, there is a hierarchy of when they are to be offed. So the final two are the worst. And they get away in the play.
Also, it ruins the concept, doesn't it? If two of them get away, then the
There's
clever
not
thing
enough
about
left.
they're all dead, so who could have killed them?
And they get away as lovers, and they are horrendous killers. So I would obliterate that. And it was done by Sarah Phelps, who was on earlier, and she reinstated the original ending of the book. So that is the one that I would change, that was never changed, but go back to the original.
Okay, Sam, I'm going to ask you a different question.
So, ask me an easier one.
Do any of your readers ever write to you and say, wow, I loved that ending? Or has anybody ever written to you and said, what sort of an ending was that? I mean, this is a much better ending.
They've never written about ending. They always write. I wrote a detective character called Kat Connolly. That was my first book. She's a kickboxing detective, and I'm always getting letters from people saying, when is there going to be another Kat book? So I suppose her ending probably. When we were talking earlier about series books and whether somebody's story is there's still story to tell, I think as a writer, some of my characters, I felt their story wasn't over, and so therefore they've popped up in a different book somewhere along the line. And clearly my readers feel that there should be more Kat, so that's...
And
so
when's
her
that going to
ending.
happen?
Well, who knows? That's just a whole different
Watch this
question.
space.
Exactly, yeah.
See how you're doing. I'm going to open it up to the audience. Have we got any questions for our panellists here on endings or anything else? Yes, you can start. Yes.
I'm interested to know how you can...
Do we have a roving mic at all?
Oh, we do? Yeah,
Yep.
it's going to come down now, hopefully. There we go. Have we got the mic at the back? Do you want to come down to the front here?
Yep.
There's just right down the front.
Yeah, if you...
Then, because we've got a crowd online as well, and they need to be able to hear the questions. So. Sorry, I'm very bossy, aren't I?
Just over there.
Thank you. I'm interested in how you come up with your titles and when you come up with your title. Is it when the book's finished or when you're partway through?
That's a good
That's
question.
a good question. You can do that one first.
Well, it depends on the book. For a number of my books, I've had the title at the beginning. For other books, I just couldn't come up with a good title, and my editors give me a list of about 20, and I pick the least worst one. So yeah, for me it varies, and there'll be a title that I think is terrible, and I'll say working title, and it ends up being the title of the entire novel, and it's on the shelves. So it's bizarre. At times you can find, for me, you can find the right title right at the beginning, and at other times you can finish the process and still not come up with anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, completely. And mine are always changed. Every time I'm like, this is brilliant, this is brilliant. Like, no, it's not, it's terrible. Have this instead. So I've just got to the point where they will allow me occasionally to have maybe a word or two that I like in there. Like death, murder.
They like words like that, don't they?
Yeah.
If you don't have words like that, they get upset.
Yeah, they have to.
For me, the title usually is there from the very beginning, and I'm passionately attached to it. So I almost always get my original title, but I know lots of writers who say they almost never get their original title, and I wonder, I don't think it's that my publishers like my titles more than other people's publishers like theirs. I think I maybe go into the proceedings with a bit more of an expectation that I will have my title, and maybe people are reluctant to say, no, you won't, whereas maybe other writers go, I don't know what you think of the title, whereas I go, it is called. But certainly I can tell you my two most joyful title moments, when I said to Carolyn at Bedford Square, I said, okay, because we'd been talking about the book, and I was calling it Gone Dog or The Furry Fugitive, and then I said, I have got actually a proper title for it. And then I kind of steeled myself because I thought they're going to say it's too long. Publishers always say title too long. So I said, it's called No One Would Do What the Lamberts Have Done. And she went, oh my God, I love it. I was like, really? It's not too long? She's like, no, it's perfect. And I just had been ready for a bit of an argument with that one because publishers often are scared of long titles. And the other one was The Two Children Who Didn't Age for 12 Years. My title for that was Haven't They Grown, which I loved, but I thought was maybe too weird. And again, Carolyn went, oh, I love it, it's perfect. So those two moments of like, yes, I knew I'd got the perfect title were really good. My only experience of not having a title for what seemed like forever was my first Poirot novel. I wanted to call it, and the working title was If Murder Began with a D, which I thought was fantastic, but everyone went, yeah, but that'd just be Durder, and that makes no sense. So then they the publishers suggested some titles, the Christie family suggested some titles, and I just kept going, prefer If Murder Began with a D. And we were really stuck for ages. And then when the book was like a week away from having to go to print, I grudgingly said, all right, then what about the Monogram Murders? And they all went, yes, we love that. And I didn't like it at the time, although now I'm so glad that the book is called The Monogram Murders and not If Murder Began with a D. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes a huge difference, doesn't it? A title. Sometimes books come with a title, sometimes they don't. My debut was called The Dressmaker. Well, it wasn't called The Dressmaker, it was called Little Bones. But it was called The Dressmaker for all the years that I was writing it. And just before it was due to be published, it was due out in April, and in January I sat down with my agent, and there was a movie coming out called The Dressmaker just around the same time, and we went, oh, this could be, not that anybody's going to, necessarily when you're mixing them up, but, if you Google The Dressmaker, you're going to get that instead. And he said, well, for goodness sake, it sounds like a Regency romance anyway, because he hated the title The Dressmaker, but hadn't said it until that point. But then we had this problem of then trying to coming up with the title, and it's about Kat Connolly, who's a detective, finds the bones of a baby hidden in the hem of a wedding dress. And so it's about bones and wedding dresses and things like that. That's why it's called The Dressmaker. And it took weeks and weeks to come up with the title. And myself and a very good friend of mine, Alex Barkley, who's another crime writer, we were brainstorming. I was brainstorming with my agent, publishers. It was published by Bonnier. They were all trying to come up with the title. And eventually Kate Parkin, who's this amazing woman in British publishing, came up with this title, Little Bones. And it was such a total no-brainer. It was so obvious, when you get it right. So it was great. So I was thrilled with that. But yeah, some of the others vary. My next one's called Now You See Me, which I knew I wasn't going to get because hundreds of books are called Now You See Me. And so I knew...
So that's a working title?
That's a working title. So the first thing that came back from the editor was that everybody sat down and we don't really like the title. And I knew that was going to happen, so...
Victoria?
I get fixated on the title I want, and I wanted A Conspiracy of Ravens.
Such a good title.
And it was such a good title, and they just said, no, it doesn't, it's not crimey enough. It's not crimey enough.
I would have thought.
It's Death in the Aviary.
Oh, no, I like your title.
I know.
But you have a gorgeous cover. It's got gold.
A beautiful
gold
cover.
on it.
And they've gone for the whole concept of it being within a series as well. So it can't just be the title of something that stands on its own.
So are they all death?
No, they're all they're the Blood Chronicles, because she's Charlotte Blood.
Right.
So
And it's coming out in September, and it's really good, so you can pre-order it now. I've read it.
And it's got a lift.
I do think A Conspiracy of Ravens does sound crimey.
I think so. I think so. But I think it's been used before a few times, and I think it's also...
Ruth Rendell had an unkindness of ravens, didn't she?
And I think also it sounds a bit Sexy Dragons, which is a massive genre.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to put some Sexy Dragons in there.
You're going to have a sexy dragon?
No, my new book's going to be called The Thursday Durder Club.
Yeah. Well, there you are.
That's going to... I've got a good vibe about that.
I think that will work.
Absolutely.
Can we have another question? Yes. Oh, I think the lady in the second row put her hand up first.
Hi, I wanted to ask you, Abir,
gosh.
a similar question to this about the same names of titles, the same names of authors, because I was reading your books, absolutely adored them. I thought, right, I'll find some more by this author. Found Abir Mukherjee, total crap.
It's not me. This is the thing.
Not you.
It's not me.
Love you.
Yeah, there is.
Do you just suck it up, or?
I tell you what it is. The problem is because there's 1.4 billion Indians, and there's at least 2 of us that are writers with the same name.
Oh no.
The problem is the other guy lives in India and he writes, what should we call it? Rabbit. Not just that.
That came from the audience. You're safe.
Right, the titles are all quite sort of soft porny. So I get people writing to me going, did you write this? And I'm like, no, I didn't, and there's nothing I can do about it, other than say, not that one, I'm the other one, the one that doesn't have porny titles. But it's an issue, and I talked to my agent, because the problem is, because he was published before I was, and I found his books online before my first book came out, and I said to my agent, is this going to be an issue? And he said, no, of course not. The guy's in India, and you probably won't have a career longer than 10 minutes. So I could have put in the middle initial. Actually, you know what? I want a white name. Because I'd sell more books if I had a white name, because there's a segment of the population who don't pick up books written by authors with funny-sounding names.
Kia mentioned that this morning.
I'll tell you, I've done the research on this, right? So I would be Alex Cartwright, which sounds SAS with a hint of home counties.
It does.
You would all buy Alex Cartwright's books, wouldn't you? Yes,
No.
but yeah. Of course
That
you
would be
would.
awful.
Oh, of course they'd be
That'd
awful. I'd be
some sort
writing
of
them.
pumped up arse. No.
So you wouldn't buy it? Oh,
I would.
gosh.
I would far prefer to buy.
You'd buy the other
Abir
Abir
Mukherjee.
Mukherjee's
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
But that is a bit of a hitch.
Thank you for bringing that up, though.
Ones.
It's a bit of a hitch.
I keep hoping he'll stop writing, and he does for long times, but because he's not had one out for a while. But I also feel sorry for him because he gets an awful lot of abuse from people saying, "You're not the right Abir Mukherjee."
As well,
And I don't know what to do because there's not much I can do. Anyway, let's have another question.
That's interesting.
Another question. Thank you for that. Yes.
I wouldn't buy a book by Alex Cartwright. By
Alex, you wouldn't?
No.
She's right.
Okay, hands up.
wishy-washy
Who
and-
wouldn't buy a book by Alex Cartwright?
Wouldn't.
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 What is it with white people? I just do not understand you at all.
Hang on a minute, I'm really confused. All those people who've got their hands up, you wouldn't buy a book if the author's name was Alex Cartwright. Why not?
He sounds like an idiot to me.
He sounds like it.
Could be a woman.
Yeah.
Sorry?
There was an author, Justin Cartwright.
Yeah. Could be a woman though, Alex Cartwright, couldn't it?
But I would buy... I don't get that. I would buy a book... If I liked the blurb and the story, then unless the author's name was I Hate Cute Puppies, then I
Okay,
would
so that's
buy...
off the list as well then. No, but I'll
But
tell
also
you an
Alex
anecdote about that
Cartwright's
later.
just like a fairly...
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be a positive or a negative, so I don't get...
But you're not, there are
I'm
people
learning
who
all
want-
kinds of weird. Jane Eyre, Alex Cartwright.
But you're
Gonna-
late for a
Okay,
flight.
at the end of this, I do want a name, or I want a pen name from all of you. But anyway, ask your question, please do.
Sorry, yeah. And this might be inarticulate because I tried to think through the question as I talk. Okay, I really struggle with endings as a reader with books, particularly standalone books. I know that they're a product package in themselves, but to me, stories about change. And change is positive and negative, and it ripples out to a whole load of cast of people. So when a book ties everything up neatly in the end, I'm very dissatisfied to the extent that I've actually stopped reading the endings of a lot of standalone books, and I enjoy just the middle. I know, that's terrible. So I guess this is why I read series. So I think my question to you is, do you ever try and grapple with that in constructing an ending, or is it all about solving the puzzle?
That's a good question.
I think that's, sorry, I have to say, it's so interesting to hear how readers read books, because you don't read the ending. Sometimes I meet people that read the ending first. I find that very strange. And then read the rest of the book. And we spend so long trying to get all these bits right, don't we?
and
That's
getting
really
all the
interesting.
threads in the right place.
Yeah.
Although I read one recently where the threads were not all in the right place, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely superb. And I did think, oh, why have I been trying to make it so neat all the time when in fact life is not very neat?
Yeah.
There should be hanging threads.
Yeah.
There should be the fact that somebody buried someone under the patio and then they haven't been discovered. It's just there.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
And that,
in real life, I think that's really
unfortunately,
interesting.
I'm sure
Yeah.
does happen
I
on
think-
every street.
And I think that's exactly... I agree with you completely, and I think that is why I always, like... In real life, what I find is that when you really desperately want to know something, you often never find out. Or you find out, or just at the moment you find out, you start wanting to know something else more that you then don't know.
Yeah.
So I try and always have, but they're not loose ends, because the thing I feel I have to do is solve the mystery that is in the blurb. So the kind of
core
central mystery. There has to be an answer, but then I always try and have new threads going from the answer and creating ambiguity about what's going to happen next, basically.
Just on that point, so my last book, Hunted, it took me 3 years to write because the first attempt was rubbish. And by the end of it, I had no idea if it was good or not. And so even when it was in manuscript form, I sent it to about 5 or 6 writers. So I sent it to Mick Herron, Lee Child, Val McDermott. It was like the Avengers of writing, right? And they all came back with comments. You know, some were really nice. Auntie Val was just like, change this, change that, change it. Felt like I'd been mugged. But Lee Child came back and said, I think it needs an epilogue to tie up the things that aren't tied up at the end, because the ending's quite abrupt. And we thought about that. We thought about it with my editor in London and in New York, and we decided, no, we're not going to have that. We will leave the threads hanging as they are. And the feedback, when you go online, if you're ridiculously stupid and you go online and you read the reviews on Goodreads, there's a split. I know, I'm a masochist.
No.
There's a split. There are people who are saying, I wish I knew what happened. I thought the ending was too abrupt. And there are other people who said, I love the ending. So you can never get it right, I suppose.
No. I think the wonderful thing about writing is that, you know, when you meet people, you'll meet people all the time. We don't like everybody we meet. Yeah. And it's the same with books. We're not all going to love.
But we hate the same people. So
well, we do, so we're grand, yeah, exactly. But it's, but I think so that's the thing, is you don't have to write for absolutely everybody in the audience. You just have to write for enough people.
Or write for yourself.
Oh, right, well, that's it. Write for yourself, exactly.
A lot of the time you kind of think, I really want to write this story, this book, and it might be absolutely terrible, and your agent might be going, what the hell have you just done? You've got a series, it's really nice. Why would you try and do this? But you really want to do it, and you just have to write that story. And the ending will be when you really hate the book and you don't want it anymore, and you're finished with it, and you go, have it. This is it. Just tell me what you think about it.
Somebody speaking from experience.
Yeah. Just have it.
It's done, just take it.
Just have it.
But
That's
I think it's more than, I mean, yes, obviously some people like books which other people hate, and that like everyone has their taste. But I think we as the writers can say about our books, when we have that feeling of like, yes, this is it. I think I go by that. And for me, you said earlier, Abir, like how do you know when you've got the right ending? To me, it is exactly like when you're viewing houses. When you're viewing houses that are for sale, right, which I've been doing a lot recently. And sometimes you walk in and you kind of think, the lounge is okay, could work if I change this and then. Other times, rarely, you walk into a house that's for sale and you're just like, yes, this is it. I must have this one. And I feel the same about endings. When I know they're right, I'm just like, this is the perfect ending. And very often, some readers won't like it and won't agree that it's the perfect ending. But I just kind of know that that story needs that ending. I think there's something about the story itself which tells you what kind of ending it needs. And I think also you can mix up an ending that you like, as in the baddie didn't, the baddie got properly punished, or the baddie didn't get properly punished and he was terrible, so we really wanted him to and he didn't. And people will confuse that with the book has a bad ending. But sometimes artistically, the best ending a book can have will be one where we don't like what happens. And I'm not sure enough readers distinguish between those two categories. So like some of what I think are the best endings are the ones that are most painful, and I don't like what happens in them, but they're still absolutely right for those books.
Yeah, or they're really, really cool. So the ending of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, we all know that bit, and there's the music going. Who cares? Yeah. Well, the actual little bit is the baddie. Who is the baddie? We don't know, but they're all, they're in a graveyard. That music is happening. It's one of the most iconic endings to any story. But can anybody tell you what the actual ending moment was? They probably can, but don't.
And then we must talk about this category of ending. This is a whole other category of ending. There's the kind of ending that almost invalidates everything that's gone before, like The Usual Suspects. Which I love.
So would you call that a twist, or is that something? Yeah,
that's a twist.
That's the Sophie Hannah definition of a twist.
There are other but a twist is something that overturns or undoes something we thought we definitely knew.
Yeah.
Now, I think The Usual Suspects is one of the most brilliant things ever, and when you get to that twist at the end, it enhances the whole experience. My sister, on the other hand, said that twist ruined it for her completely, because she was like, that twist means that everything I've been watching up until the twist is bollocks.
It's a lie. You've been cheated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, that moment, the interest all along, followed by the complete turning around of everything, that didn't invalidate what had come before. It made it kind of even better. So that's a risky kind of ending.
What about The Sixth Sense? The ending from
Best twist ever.
That's a twist,
Best
isn't it?
That's a
Oh,
twist.
that was brilliant. I watched
And the
Because
other
that doesn't
play.
invalidate what went before.
It doesn't. So there's a big difference. So Usual Suspects, it does, but I didn't care. Sixth Sense, it doesn't. It's that
just
you've
perfect,
been looking
yeah.
wrongly at
Yeah.
what... And the other brilliant twist in cinema is The Others, the Nicole
I
Kidman
love
movie.
that. I
That
love
twist...
That's beautiful.
That twist is so...
Beautifully
It's
done.
shocking, but it's so clever
And so obvious.
and so
when you-
simple. Well, it's
Yeah,
simple. It's structurally simple, isn't
And
it?
you, why did I not see
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Because you've basically been told all the way through.
Yeah,
You've been
it's
told.
amazing. If anyone hasn't seen The Others, or The Usual
It's
Suspects...
beautiful. But
Yeah.
with The Sixth Sense, though, I watched it on a plane and I was so shocked. And it was in the days when, you had the headphones and everybody's watching the same movie all at the same time. And I just went, oh my God, he's... I'm just thinking somebody might not have... And 3 rows stood up and looked back and went, oh my God, you've just bust the whole film.
Oh, no, because you're watching ahead of them.
But
Should we have-
that is a good one.
Should we have one final question? Oh gosh, now the hands are going up.
Yeah,
Who's going to ask
Panic,
the final question?
panic question.
All right, 2 final
We'll give
questions.
quick
There's 2
answers.
ladies here. Ayo, you can go first. Go on then.
I've got to... Hi, Sophie. I was going to say, I've got to agree with Sophie about The Usual Suspects. Absolutely brilliant film. And for me, when I watched it, I had to watch it 3 times before I actually cottoned on to what was happening. So it's really, really good. But I'm talking about endings again. I must be one of the few people who don't bloody well care about endings. If it's ambiguous, I don't care. I'm more interested in the story, the plot, the characters, and if they all make sense and all fall into place.
So why did you come to the killer endings panel, Ayo?
Last one of the day.
See you, dear.
Okay.
But endings, I think endings are very important. And when you're thinking about your endings, do you have to make sure that it's one that you're completely happy with or one that you think is acceptable?
I have to be not just happy with it, but excited about it and think it's amazing. I remember there was one of my books where I'd come up with an ending that was really fine, if not beyond fine. I wasn't happy with it, so I thought I'll try it out on my mum. So I said, look, Mum, here's the ending I'm thinking of having. Explained it all to her. She went, that's a brilliant ending. That's marvellous. Nothing wrong with it at all. And as she was reassuring me, I was like, no, it's not brilliant. I just knew it. So I have to have an ending that I'm I imagine I'm the reader not knowing the ending. How excited and blown away would I be by that ending?
So you have the mum test, the anti-mum test.
Well, you know what it's like when you know what you think and you ask someone else. Fred did this, and I'm a bit cross. Should I forgive Fred? And they go, yeah, forgive Fred. It's not his fault. You go, no, actually, I'm going to hate Fred forever. Asking another person is a great way of testing or kind of finding what you actually think. So that's why,
interesting.
why I asked my
Talking out
mum.
the story and it all
But
falls
I
into
agree
place.
with you, Ayo, actually, about, some of my favourite books have disappointing endings. So for me, the most important thing is how much do I love the reading experience on a page by page. If I'm just like, oh, this is great, this is great.
Yeah.
One of my favourite books of last year, I won't say what it is, had something utterly ridiculous, not quite at the end, but almost at the end. And everyone I recommended that book to, they were like, what about that really mad bit at the end? I was like, I know, but I just loved reading it so much until that point. It's still my book of the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the lady just behind, yep. No, that's you, absolutely.
Hello. A very quick question from me. You talked about ambiguous endings. Is there a role in crime fiction for the alternative ending? I guess I'm thinking of The French Lieutenant's Woman, where you are literally given, as a reader, two alternative endings to choose from. Does that go against the grain in crime fiction?
No, definitely you can have ambiguous. And there's the whole thing now where it's going back to the golden age, where you can have the conclusion is in a sealed envelope. So if you don't like the rest of the book, you get the chance to take the book back to the shop and say, I didn't open the envelope. I'm not that interested in in what happened.
Goodness me, I haven't heard this.
And that's coming back a little bit. Does the ending matter so much to you? And I'm not sure you can claim your money back at the moment, so don't take me up on that.
But I think, I mean, it certainly could work, and I could imagine, I can't think of any instances where that has been done, but if someone did it, I think now, with the sort of playfulness that's entering the crime fiction market, I could imagine someday soon getting a bound proof from a publisher.
With that.
There are 2 alternative endings, and I think I would quite enjoy choosing between them.
There's the new ones that are kind of like the fighting fantasy book.
Choose your own.
Yeah,
Choose your own adventure.
And even, you see, some really, really clever books do that without doing it overtly. And I'm going to recommend one that does this, which is The Rose and the Yew Tree by Mary Westmacott, who is Agatha Christie.
You recommended that in Dublin, actually.
And that's recommended in this book as well, right?
It plays a big part in Lambert's, but I'm obsessed with this book because it reads like a sort of, on the surface, it's like a psychological drama about people and relationships. I am utterly convinced that it is a hidden murder mystery novel. And I won't say why because it would spoil us something, but if you read it twice and look for the signs that it's actually a story about a murder plot that goes disastrously wrong, it's all there. And I think Agatha must have known. I just don't think I would have made that up. I wouldn't have noticed that if it wasn't there. It's definitely there. Rose and the Yew Tree, as good as any of her Agatha Christie novels. And it's a Mary Westmacott.
That is a great recommendation.
Absolutely. Very good.
Do we have any book recommendations before we finish? Other than your own work, obviously.
No, Tess Gerritsen's. I absolutely adored reading Tess Gerritsen's books. I'm a big fan girl. Both of them, The Spy Coast and The Summer Guests.
Victoria, something that you've read recently?
The Curtain Twitcher's Guide to Murder.
Oh, yeah, you loved that, didn't you?
I loved this book.
I think that's a Bedford Square one.
It is.
It's
absolute, and it does the thing of not tying up all the endings. So there are people just wandering around going, I'm a killer. Deal with it, which I suspect could happen in any room of people.
Well, I'm not going to point out the killers. I am going to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here and being with us tonight. I've had great fun with this wonderful panel. If I can ask you just to give a round of applause to Sophie Hannah, Victoria Dowd, and Sam Blake. Thank you very much.